The Auburn Tigers even the season series with Mississippi State for 2023-2024 by beating them by the score of 78-63 at home. This is our reaction stream for that game. We're going to talk about the score, the storylines, and the stats. All that's coming up right here, right now. Well, War Eagle Auburn family, and of course, a special War Eagle, and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of our E2C network family, our little family within the Auburn family. Thank you so much for being here and being part of the stream. However you got here, whether you're watching live on the replay, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, all the other different places and platforms and times with which you can get this content. We appreciate you being here. We have another reaction stream to do for you today. This is Auburn versus Mississippi State, round 2 for this season. And boy, did the Tigers even it up in fine fashion in the Nev with an opportunity to really solidify themselves, not just how they finish out the regular season, but heading into postseason play for the SEC tournament, for the NCAA tournament. Really needed this one, and they did it in fine fashion at home. So we want to jump into all those different things. We want to talk about the individual stats, the team stats, and especially the storylines of this games, and of course the score as well. So let's do that. As we get into the stream here, make sure you do smash the like button. It is a huge help in helping the stream get off to a good start. And of course, let us know down below in the comment section where you're watching from with a War Eagle, and of course post some thoughts and comments. We want to talk about what you want to discuss surrounding this game. Obviously, I've talked about it already a little bit. The biggest storyline for me is the importance of what this game meant for Auburn positioning itself for the rest of its season. Obviously, the Tennessee game had humongous implications leading into this in terms of where Auburn might find itself. Even after a win or a loss situation there, you really kind of positioned yourself in a certain way, and they really needed this win right here to make sure that they find themselves where they need to be for SEC tournament decisions and things like that. So we'll leave it at that. The other big storyline that I want to talk about right off at the start, and it just breaks my heart to talk about because, and I say break my heart like I know something, but most of you who watched the game know that Lior Berman went down with an apparent leg injury about halfway through the second half and was really having a good game and has had a really great, in fact, we had just put out a tweet, unfortunately, talking about how well he had done and how much he is earning his time, thus why his time has increased significantly over the last several games, especially in the back half of the season. So seeing him go down was not great. And we don't know the extent right now of the injury. I'm sure Bruce will be meeting with the media shortly, and we may even get some people talking about that in the chat live here. But obviously, prayers go out for him, and hopefully he is going to be okay. That's two very fan favorite players that have had significant injuries within the last few games here. Thankfully, Jalen is back and seems to be doing well. And I just would hate to see a guy like Lior, who's another heart and soul type of player of the team, not be able to finish out the season the way he wants to finish out his season and potentially career, because I believe he's a senior now too. All these timelines get a little bit confusing with transfer portal and all and COVID years and all those different things today. All right, we got a lot of fine people checking in. We got Jackson Neal. Who else here? Kevlar, Brian, Devin, all checking in. Chris here as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. Yes, everybody talking about Lior especially. Devin points out it looked like he got kicked in the back of the knee. Yeah, I guess maybe that's what happened. I guess what's more concerning is what the kick in the back of the knee did. Did it? To me, at one point, it looked like he was grabbing his hamstring, which that would have been, the end all be all of the year. Knee injuries are no joke. We talked about it a lot with Jalen. No matter what it is, it did not look great. You saw the most painful thing for me is watching a player have that go through their mind on the floor without the privacy of being able to talk with doctors and stuff, like just slamming his hand down the floor. You saw the emotion. It was very sad. I hope it was just the reaction of the moment and him fearing what this might mean, and it's not as bad as it seemed like Jalen. But to have it happen twice in several games is very, very, very disturbing. Everybody look at Brian. He sent us a picture in the Conquer Club, just letting us all stew about how nice his viewing area is for Auburn basketball, but for this stream too in Turks and Caicos. So thank you for continuing to remind us of where you are and where we all wish we would be. Jackson says this was a poorly officiated game. Neville was rocking. Yeah, hats off again to just the student section, especially for staying in town for this game. It's spring break. Obviously, many of people have desires to be elsewhere, and they stayed in town. Now, the Wednesday matchup, well, thankfully, will be at Missouri, so doesn't really matter there. But thankfully, they all stuck around and played a big role. Seemed like there was a pretty decent regular general admission crowd too. Good response by everybody involved there. The ref situation, yeah, it definitely slowed down the game. We started this stream about 6:20, so that tells you usually most games are done within about the 2-hour mark. That tells you how much it was slowed down. Now, on that note, certain players did not make it. They made it very easy for them to get called on. CBM, some players on Mississippi State. There was a lot of chattering. There was a lot of extracurricular activities. So unfortunately, when refs feel like they have to insert themselves into an emotional situation, they were going to be more prone to do so, and this slowed the game down even further. It's been some emotional games as of late, it seems like. So a little bit over involvement there. Neil says another up and down week. Thus is the ride. That is being part of an Auburn fan. And we all should be used to it at this point. So, yeah. And then Cody talks about how great it is today. What a great day of games that we've got checking in right here. Kevin says that CBM needs to chill out. All the jawing is unnecessary. Just play ball and keep the trash for after. Yeah, I will say that he does seem to, as of late, as he's gotten more confident, found his place on this team, has expressed himself more. And I think one of the great things about Coach is he lets the guys be themselves, which opens up the freedom for them to be themselves. Obviously, it's kind of redundant to say that, but opens up the opportunity for personalities to be displayed more. We've seen that with Katie Johnson, and you can love it or hate it. But what I do know is that Bruce gets the best out of his guys time and time again. So to me, yeah, it's unfortunate. Hopefully this will be a learning experience for him. He's an emotional guy, and sometimes that can get the better of you. And there was a few instances where that happened today. Calling a foul with 8 seconds left is just overdoing it. Well, you don't want your coach to stop coaching at the end of the game when the walk-ons and such come in. You don't want the refs to just quit their jobs at the end of the game too. Kevlar likes those personalities. I do as well. I don't always enjoy the things that come with those personalities, but I will definitely take them rather than leave them at this point, especially the way they're both able to contribute defensively too. So a couple of the storylines there at the top, the importance of this game, the Lior injury, some of the foul situations, the Chad Bacon-Mazzara drama that happened in the middle of the game. I think those are probably the most prominent things. Can we give a shout out to Jalen Williams, first of all? Well, I forget the stat especially, but it was like 135 games that he set a record for playing as an Auburn Tiger. And just think about it, folks. There was a chance that record may not have happened if he doesn't play another game after his injury. How weird is it to think about that? So very thankful that he got an opportunity to do that. We are all hoping for good news on Berman. I'm hoping somebody in the live portion of this show, for those of you that are watching live, will be able to hear something and maybe give us a little bit of insight about what's going on. He won 108 games out of the 135. Pretty good record, right? It's a pretty good record. Jackson, great to point out as well that Denver Jones went off. He had a great game. Let's pull up the stats and start discussing that a little bit further here. Denver Jones is almost, and for most of the game, was your leading scorer with 15 points today. 5 for 11 from the field, 3 for 5 from three-point arc, 100% on free throws, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, only 1 personal foul in 28 minutes of play. This is probably one of Denver's best games, and I'm pretty sure he got into like the 20-point mark, 1 point this season. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, regardless of the amount of points, he made his presence known a lot. And that's what we've been asking a lot. At times we've relied too much on Janai and Jalen, and we've need some of our guards to show up more often than not. Denver's starting to do that more. Not a guard, but Chaney Johnson is definitely starting to do that more. So today is definitely a day where we give a lot of props and kudos to Denver, especially early and often with what he was able to do. So good shout out there. Katie's staring down the opposing bench. I wish he wouldn't do it, but as long as he doesn't get in trouble, I'm okay with it, right? I'll be a little biased in that sense. There are emotions and antics in the game that sometimes are just going to happen. Not excusing them, not condoning them, but it is what it is. Your leading scorer tonight, Janai Broom, 17.7 for 13 from the field, just doing what Janai does and asserting himself down low. Made a three-pointer, 50% from free throws. I will say, if I've got one critique for Janai, as the season's gone on, and maybe I'm wrong on this trend, but it feels like he's starting to slip a little bit in his free throws. Gotta have that shored up. That was one of the things that came to bite him at the end at the tournament game last year. We really need that shored up. 6 rebounds for him. Pretty good, decent game for him overall. Chad Baker-Mazara, we've already talked about him. He does foul out, has that technical foul, but 10 points for him today, and some pretty big moments, especially defensively. Jalen Williams also with 10 points. I thought he had more than that, I'll be honest with you. I thought he was like in the 13, 14 range of points, but only 10 points for him today. But good to see him out there being solid. 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Wow. 8 points. 8 of his 10 points came from the free throw line. That's probably why it felt like more, because we saw him at the free throw line a lot. So shout out to those guys. Who's your player of the game? I think this is one of those days where you can make a case one way or the other. So if you're watching live, especially in the chat right now, who is your player of the game? Let me know right now. My favorite moment was the follow-up slam dunk from Cardwell near the end. That made Neville rock again. Got him woken back up, right? Everybody's thinking about where they're heading off to for spring break. I will say there's a lot of good connections on this team amongst all of them. But one that I love is Trey Donaldson to Dylan Cardwell, especially in the alley-oop category. That just happens, it seems like, if not every game, almost like every other game. For me, that's one of the things that makes a team really successful, when you see those connections happening, amongst 2 or 3 players and they're playing really well together. Doesn't matter if they're starting or not. To me, I really like that. And I think that's helped bring up, Dylan's game even more, because he's getting more opportunities to score, because when he and Trey are together, they're almost kind of like looking for each other a little bit. We've got 2 votes for Denver player of the game. I think it's very warranted for him tonight. Given how productive he was early and often. Not the leading scorer, but if you look at his overall stat line, pretty solid. Anybody else got any cases for MVPs? Let me know. Jackson wants to give props to Hubbard, too, because he was hitting those impossible shots. What was it? 4 SEC players, SEC freshman player of the week. He just kind of burst onto the scene. We've had a lot of superstars appear this year out of nowhere. Dalton Knecht, Hubbard, plenty of others. And look, folks, Mississippi State's a good basketball team. They've got a pretty good range of notable players. We're talking about Hubbard, Tulu Smith. To me, this is a team that, yes, you look at this win, it's a pretty comfortable margin of victory. But this is also a team that just barely lost to Kentucky. I think they beat Tennessee, or maybe I have that backwards. Anyway, they have competed with the best really well. And we just know when you come to Neville Arena, you usually don't have a lot of success unless Auburn's having an uncharacteristically bad game, Kentucky. So there's that as well, if you want to think about that. The rest of your scores this evening: Katie Johnson with 3, Trey Donaldson with 4, Lior Berman with 5, Chaney Johnson with 8, Cardwell with 6. I want to give props again to Chaney Johnson. He makes 2 3-pointers today, but he also contributes in other ways too. I really like the way that he is starting to come on. So think about what we were just talking about. You've got your mainstays, as long as everybody remains healthy: Janai, Jalen, Chad Baker, Mazara are probably your core three right now, but then you've got these other guys that are starting to come along more consistently, whether it's your Chaney Johnsons, your Denver Joneses, and then everybody else who's there is just at any moment going to have a big game too. So it's a really good combination in terms of your players that that you should be excited about. Big improvement on the boards compared to the first game. Yeah, we'll look at those in just a second. Felt like we did. Chris Moore played better today. How did he? Let's look at him. He didn't score today, only 6 minutes. So that's probably one of the more interesting things that's happened as of late. And it coincides with the Jalen Williams injury. So it's hard for me to just holistically look at the drop from going from starting with Chris Moore to the low amount of minutes that he's seen to think that it's solely because of his production. Because if that's the case, he would have been pulled out of those starting roles much earlier, because that lower production in terms of statistics has been going on for quite some time. To me, it was we changed the rotations when Jalen was out because of sizing issues on the second line coming in. And Bruce saw that these combinations were working a little bit better at the time, and thus necessitating him not having his starting at all, but having less time overall. Let's see. 9 of 19 from 3. Oh, y'all want to talk about these? Look to be peaking at the right moment. Maybe, Kevin. I hope that we're not even close to peaking. I hope that we're just playing well and that we will start hitting a nice little incline here as we move into tournament time. To me, yes, you could still say that we're peaking. I won't argue semantics with you there on that one. So that's your individual stats, some of the storylines. Let's look at team stats. Some of y'all have been interested in talking about that. Field goal percentage, 50%. 50% for Auburn today at home, 47% from the three-point arc. Free throws, 76%. There was a time where we were pretty consistently hitting right at 80, maybe 79 or above, just 82, 83. And we've dropped down as of late a little bit. I think that coincides with Janai himself struggling a little bit from the free throw line. I know I'm harping over 4 points. 80% is where I want free throws to be at personally, but it's just something I'm noticing that'll be important in postseason play. So free throws, 76%. We always focus on that. Turnovers and rebounds. Turnovers tonight, Auburn wins barely the turnover battle, 13-10. Rebounds. Mississippi State wins the rebound game, 36-30. Now, historically, at least this season, this is a good defensive team, which would stand to reason that they would be pretty good at rebounding. And that kind of shows here today. So Auburn does lose that battle, but not by a significant margin. So they win 2 out of the 3 important categories for me. None by a significant margin, but when you factor in home crowd, all that, the way they shot too, that's a big reason why they won. A few other stats maybe to point out, see if we can find the one that made the biggest difference. It's probably going to be the shooting percentage today. Bench points, doubled them up, 13-26. Points in the paint, they win by 2 points, 30-28. Fast break points even. Blocks and steals are in Auburn's favor, and assists are 11-19. I like that assist differential. I like the defensive stats differential. But to me, I think just the way that Auburn shot today is probably the biggest reason. Going back to what we talked about earlier about maybe who your player of the game is, Denver Jones shooting very well. Chaney Johnson shooting very well. Jalen Williams having some high percentage shot attempts really helped everybody tonight. So good performances individually. Thinking about Lior, obviously, and plenty of good team stats to be excited about. So we'll move into talking about what's next. Before we do that, let me always give you a reminder of what's coming up next here at E2C Network so you can stay tuned. Do not miss it, folks. A lot of you, we miss seeing you on the Sunday night shows, 9 Eastern time. I know that our schedule's been a little off just because of sicknesses and things like that, but we anticipate be back in the saddle at 9 Eastern time tomorrow for episode 68, live recording. It was supposed to be last week. We just did a Q&A show simply because Austin was sick and under the weather. Don't miss it. The Auburn Experience live recording episode 68 tomorrow night at 9. If you want more reaction shows, we will have the second to last one in terms of regular season ones after the Missouri game. I believe that's a late one. This Tuesday. It's going to be a little bit different a week. We got a reaction stream on Tuesday for basketball. We will have an Auburn Family Night call-in show on Wednesday at 8. A lot of maybe spring practice talk there to talk about. So that'll be Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then after that, at some point when baseball gets wrapped up that evening with their Air Force second game, we will talk about Auburn baseball the week that was in week 3. So don't miss it. There's going to be lots of content this week, just a little bit of flip-flopping around and things like that. So let's look ahead. We have got a game with Missouri coming up here. A lot of people would say, hey, it's a trap game. This is a team that, as I understand it, has not won an SEC game yet. They are having an abysmal season. The jokes write themselves. They are literally living in misery. I know that was bad, but it was kind of sitting there low-hanging fruit. They are literally in misery. And I would say that on paper, Auburn would wipe the floor with this team. However, with a team who knows that their season is basically done outside of being in the tournament, the SEC tournament in the last place spot, and these final regular season games, they are fighting for something. So do not, Auburn, ruin what you have done and solidified your opportunities for the postseason by losing to Missouri at home. We'll see if this thing gets scary on Tuesday. I'm not saying I have a bad feeling about it, but it could be one of those traditional trap games. We need to be focused on our last road game at Missouri. We do not want to be Missouri's only win. Some similar sentiments to what I was saying. Can't let up against Missouri. Seem to struggle there pretty regularly. Yes, and there is some history with struggling there. But outside of history, this season, playing on the road in the SEC and college basketball has just been troublesome. And I don't care if you are one of the worst teams in your league or the best. It gives you problems. Auburn needs to come out, not just for the sake of winning the game, focused, ready to take on the Missouri Tigers, but for how they look. They have positioned themselves well for the postseason, but now it's all about eye test. How do you look on the road? This is a good opportunity against a team that shouldn't beat you, have any shot. Just go out, assert yourself early, make it real boring, and get out of there with a win. Everybody healthy, hopefully. If we mess this up against Missouri, I'm going to throw myself in the Alabama River. Well, we'll hold you to that and see if that happens. Treat it like a first-round NCAA game. Maybe so, maybe so. And it will be Auburn's basically everybody's Super Bowl these days, so that's just how it goes. All right, final thoughts, questions, comments, derogatory rebuttals about Auburn versus Mississippi State, what we're looking ahead for with the final week of the regular season. Folks, I'm going to miss doing these with you guys. I know we've got 2 more regular season games, the tournament and the NCAA tournament, but it's almost done. So enjoy it while you got it. Auburn basketball only comes around once a year, and it is fun, fun, fun. I love talking about this with you. If you haven't smashed that like button, make sure you're following or subscribing here on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you got this content. And of course, we always appreciate you being here and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.